So something that we all may have or all driven in is a car. And so what happens if a car breaks down? If a car breaks down, you get it fixed, correct?
Right.
So if you guys have your car break down, when your car starts making noises, your car starts beatboxing, or the engine light comes on, y'all start trying to pray it away. Like I prayed away the engine light before. I'm like, Lord, let me get this engine light away. I want to pray for this. I want to put money towards this. You get it fixed. Some of y'all have Androids, y'all have iPhones, and if your phone breaks, your phone starts to work bad, your phone starts to slow down, what do? You get it fixed, or sometimes you get a new phone. Sometimes some of y'all like to get y'all's nails did, and I've seen that y'all like to get y'all's nails did. Y'all won't go 2 weeks, more than 2 or 3 weeks without getting your nails done. You get it redone, so when they chip, they're polished, you get your nails redone. You so saying you got it. When your hair starts to mess up. Brothers, you know we want a fresh cut. You know when you get out the fresh cut, you get out the barber, you feel like a new man. You look in the mirror, you're like, I'm a new man. You get new confidence. And so when your hair is messed up, you know, you get a new, fresh cut. But I realize when things break down, like a car or a phone, your nails get busted or your hair is looking bad, we fix those things. But what I've noticed, the most important thing that's hard to fix or to, I would say, refresh is our faith. What about when it's your faith is taking a hit? When your faith takes a hit, when it's hard to have faith, when you're trying to do things to continue to push forward, and that's harder. And verse I want to read, some of you guys that y'all know have heard most likely is Isaiah 40:31. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. And for me, like when I hear that verse, I'm like, yes, those who hope in the Lord, you know, God will renew my strength. I'll run and not grow weary. I'll walk and not faint. But what about when you do put your hope in the Lord? And you're still running and you're growing weary. When you walk and you still faint. The title of my message today, if you're taking notes, is faithful but fragile. Faithful but fragile. The reason why I believe that God put in my heart to have this message, because when you become a believer, when you start to trust in God, or maybe you're trying to figure out about God, people tell you how good of a God is, which God is great, He's amazing, He's our Savior, but no one tells you about when your faith takes a hit. When you're in a spiritual rut, when you go to church and you don't want to go to church, you don't even want to be there. When there's praise and worship and you're there, you don't want to raise your hand. When you come to life group and you don't want to interact, you don't want to talk to anybody. When you don't want to pour out, when you don't want to serve, when you don't talk, when you don't have the energy for that. And sometimes we're like, I am seeking God, but nothing's happening. You're faithful but fragile. You're seeking God. You're showing up to church. You're in your Bible. You are worshiping. You are praying, but you feel nothing. You don't feel like God is close. You don't feel like God's with you. Life is hard. I don't know how many times I've been there in my life, and I call it, a faith funk. You're in a funk with your faith. You don't know. Sometimes you wake up, you don't know why. Why is it so hard to read my Bible? When I read my word, I'm spending time with God and I feel nothing after it. And I've realized that happens in life. I'm just like, no one ever talked to me about going through a faith funk, a spiritual rut, where I'm trying to go deeper with God, but I keep drifting. I'm not sure why. And something that we all go through, but I believe it's something that we're not usually prepared for. I'm like, a problem is not even happening in my life. Why don't I want to pray? Things are going good, but why do I want to read my Bible and prepare for the message I have to teach? And we all have been there when we've been maybe in a spiritual funk. And we do things, everything you do spiritually is with your head and not with your heart. And that's what happens, and we get in that place. And today what I want to speak on, and for us to hopefully get some answers, is what to do when you're faithful, but you still feel fragile. When life is hard. In the Bible, it talks a lot about how our faith, our walk, our journey with God is like a race that we're going through. And I believe our faith is like a marathon. That's what our faith is. It's like a marathon. We're running, and I kind of correlate to a race that I've been. How many of you guys have ran for a sport, ran a marathon, ran a 10K, or ever ran for a long period of time? Raise your hand. Runners. And for me, when I've run, I believe our run is what we're on. A lot of us. You're on a run, and you're trying to be faithful to that run, but you become fragile. Some of you guys are, when you run, sometimes you can get dehydrated when you run. You can cramp up when you run. You can feel, it starts to burn when you run. You get tired when you run. And a lot of us are on that run. You're being faithful to the run. You're being faithful to the race. You're moving forward, but as you move forward, you start to feel fragile. Things start to hurt. It's harder to take another step. It's harder to move forward. And sometimes that happens in life, in our walk with God, and we don't even know why. So what do we do when we're seeking God, but we're still in a spiritual funk? When you're faithful, but your faith is still fragile. You're showing up to church every single Sunday, but you're fragile. At any second, you feel like you could break. Or you're seeking God and you have faith, but you don't feel God. And you know God's real. You know you're seeking God, but nothing changes. You don't feel Him. So I really want us to get in the Word and talk on what to do when we're in a spiritual funk. What to do when we're trying to seek God, but we feel nothing. Because I believe that's where all of us have been. It's easy for us to get to in our life. Just being in spiritual funk when we don't know what to do. So I want us to go to Hebrews 12, verses 1 through 3. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and the perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. So that you will not grow weary and lose heart. See here, it compares our walk with God as a race. Let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Let's throw off anything that may hinder us. The sin that so easily entangles us. And I've noticed on our run, on our race, it's easy for us to lose faith. It's easy for us to not fix your eyes on Jesus like it says. And fix our eyes on our problem. Fix our eyes on a feeling. Because some of us are, sometimes in our walk with God, we're more attached to a feeling than anything. You believe if you don't feel something from God, God's not there. If you don't see God moving, you believe that God's not there. But that's not faith. And I want us to find out the different things of how to move forward when we have a hard faith, when life is just hard. The first thing is, in order to get out your spiritual rut or your faith funk, you have to define it before you defeat it. It says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. Right now, you may be going through a rough patch of your faith. What is that thing that you may not need to throw off? What is that thing that may be hindering you? Do you know what it is? Have you defined it? Because it's hard to define. It's hard to defeat something you can't define. You don't know what it is. You're trying to defeat something, but you're like, what am I even fighting? What's attacking my faith? Why is my faith in a fight? Do I even know why? Is it a person? Is it a situation? Is it a feeling? Like, where am I at? And it's so important for us to know so we can throw off the thing that's hindering us. We can throw off the thing that sin that entangles us. Because when you're entangled, guess what? You can't run. You can't move forward. And it's a race that we're in. And some of us are stuck and not moving forward in our faith because we're letting things hinder us. We're letting things entangle us. And when you're hindered, things are heavy. You have things on you that should not be on you. You have things in your way that should not be in your way. And so that what happens. We get hindered. So the first thing is, why am I going through a spiritual problem? Is it because of a sin? Ask yourself that. Do I not feel God? Do I not feel anything when I seek God? It's because sin is blocking me. Sin is in my way. I'm so indulged in sin, I can't even see God. I'm reading my Bible, cool. But you're investing in sin more than anything. All of us have two beasts inside of us. Your spirit, your flesh. And the question you ask, which beast will win? Which beast is stronger? It's whichever one you feed more. And some of us are in a spiritual rut because of the sin in our life that maybe we don't even know that we're living in. The sin in our life that we haven't even addressed. Sin in our life that we haven't even defined. And you don't know what it is. Sin is simply just missing the mark. Where in your life, where you walk with God, are you missing the mark? Where in your life are you falling short? Where does God have a standard and you're coming up short? The standard is there, but you keep coming up short because you're choosing to seek what you want to seek. What is it? What's blocking you? What's between you and God? Some of us are like, I'm in a spiritual, I don't know why I'm feeling this way. I don't know why I can't see God. I don't know why I can't feel God. What have you placed between you and God? It's funny, if I'm trying to walk out that door, if I'm trying to move forward in my race, we have things in front of us that are hindering us. If we have sin, if God's that way, and this, like, let's say this table right here is my sin, it's hard to move forward when this is in my way. Because I'm going to continue to move forward, and I'm going to get tired of running into the same thing. And then you get into a spiritual rut. You can't run because you're in a rut. Can't praise because you're in a pit that you're choosing to stay in. And so what's in your life that you allow to stay there? Where area of your life do you need to ask God, God, help me remove this sin? And also knowing what's in your life that's like, does this honor God? Figuring that out. I don't know what it is for you. You have unforgiveness. Can you not receive God's forgiveness because you can't forgive anyone else? Kindness. Are you being kind to other people? You can't receive God's kindness because you're not being kind to other people. You're walking in jealousy, or you're walking in pride. What is it? What sin are you so entangled in? Is it sex outside marriage, immorality, pornography? What is it? Dishonoring family members. Even if you're an adult, you still honor your mother and father. Some of us don't think about that. Some of you guys disrespect your parents since you left the house. Don't answer the phone call. Don't reply to texts. Don't seek your parents. Yeah, they've hurt you, but you can still honor them. I mean, you have to be close to them, but you can still honor them. So what's in your life? What's blocking you? Yeah, I think sometimes we can't run because things that we place in front of ourselves. And the thing about it is, I can give this to God, and God can move it out the way. But there's sin in our life that only God can help us with. Verse in the Bible, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Another version says, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And God wants to free us from things. So are you in a rut because of sin? I know it's uncomfortable to talk about, but it's real, because that's what stops us from getting closer to God. We don't like to talk about that in church, because it makes us, it's not a feel-good thing, like, oh, I come to church to get a feel-good message. No. We're to be transformed to be more like Christ. So are you in a rut because of maybe a sin? Like, I'm seeking God, but I just don't feel him. Maybe because we have unaddressed sin in our life that we know nothing about, that we haven't took the time and to reflect. Is it because of a problem you're going through? Someone's getting a rut because we're going through a problem. Life is hard because of a problem. Is a problem hindering you? Life is hard, life is painful, life can be so unfair. I get it. But is your problem making you feel numb? Do you focus so much on your problem, even if you spend time with God, even if you're in God's presence, do you still focus on the problem? Because that's what a lot of us do. We can come to church, we can come to worship, we can do so many different things. We can be part of a life group, but we're focused on our problems more than God's presence. And that's what happens a lot of times. Why do I feel this way throughout the day? I spent time with God this morning. I went to church. I prayed today. Yeah, you did all those things, but were your eyes on your problems more than anything? Instead of fixing your eyes on Jesus, the author and finisher, the author and perfecter of our faith. Because that's what we do. I know I've been there. I prayed. I sought the Lord, but I magnified my problems instead of magnify God. And that's why sometimes we're in a spiritual world, like, why am I feeling this way? And we don't realize, maybe because I'm pursuing my problems more than I'm pursuing God's presence. And we don't even realize that, and that's maybe why we're in spiritual rut. That's why maybe we feel like I can't feel God, and I don't know why. And that may be a reason. Because your eyes, you haven't looked at it like, maybe I am focusing on my problems more than I am on God's presence. And some of us may be in a spiritual rut or not feeling God because of lack of discipline. We're not spending time with God. You're in a spiritual rut, you have lack of faith because you're not doing anything to invest in your faith. Not coming to church consistently, not in your word consistently, not praying consistently, not worshiping consistently. Maybe it's our lack of discipline, that's why we're in a rut. We're like, I feel real good on a Sunday, but then Monday through Saturday, you're in that rut because you spent no time with the Lord. Maybe the rut's there just because you're not spending any time with the Lord. For me, if I go a day without worshiping, a day without prayer, a day without reading the word, if you go a day without that, that's trying to say, I can go a day without God. And are you that strong? Are you that powerful? And also, is that real love? Is that real relationship? The people that you're in a relationship with the most, you're closest to, you want to spend time with them, you want to talk to them. And maybe we're in a rut because God's challenging us to increase our love for Him, increase our dedication, our discipline. God's like, I'm here. I know you're seeking me, but I want you to step up in your level. For me, this is where I was at maybe 8 months ago. I was in a huge spiritual rut. I was praying like I do every day. I was reading the word every day, worshiping every day, listening to my sermons every day. I was doing all that. But I did not feel God. I was teaching for a period of time and did not feel God. Talking to y'all without feeling God. I'm just like, what is going on? Why do I not want to teach? Why do I not want to pray? I'm doing it, but I do not feel like it. And after I do, I feel nothing. I feel numb. I'm trying to know God and I still feel numb. And God finally made it clear to me it was because He wanted me to up my discipline for Him. I'm like, Lord, I spent enough time with you. In my head, spend a few hours with you a day, Lord, that's enough. I got other things to do. But God was wanting me to up my discipline in a different way. To seek Him deeper. Deep, calling out to deep. Going deeper. And that's maybe where you are at. Maybe you are spending time with God. Maybe you are showing up at church. The reason why you're spiritual right is God's like, hey, I need you to come over here at a new level of discipline. You're doing the right thing. You're doing the right things, but I need you to up your game. I need you to go even deeper. And then when you go deeper, you start feeling God more. And it'll be harder. You're like, how can I go deeper when I don't even feel like doing it? Continue, push past it, and see what God does. And that's why I was like, all right, Lord, I guess I'll spend more time with you. Or I guess I'll have this new discipline. And I saw God move, and I started to feel God again.
That's good.
Some of you guys, like, you're not doing anything wrong. You're not sinning. There's not a problem going on. God's just calling you higher. Because God wants to do a new thing in you.
That's good also.
God's just calling you higher. And some of you think something's wrong. Like, what's wrong with me? I'm not doing anything right. Am I not good enough for you, God? That's what I was thinking. I'm like, God, do I have to be perfect for you? Do you have to listen to everything you do? Do I have to listen to 2 sermons a day? Do I have to read all this? Do you have to memorize the whole book of the Bible? Dang, God. These are my conversations with God, like I said. I'm like, dang. God's just like, I'm just calling you deeper. That's all. You're doing a good job. And I want to let a lot of you guys know, I believe you guys are doing a great job. Keep it up. And I'm proud of y'all. But God wants you to go deeper. And it takes discipline to go deeper. Are you a spiritual runner not feel God because maybe you have a hard heart towards God? I think sometimes that's us. We're like, I'm seeking the Lord, I'm worshiping, coming to church, I'm reading my Bible, but really, you're mad at God. Really, you're pissed off at God. Really, you can't understand, you're confused at God. You're seeking Him, but you have a bone to pick with God. And you haven't picked that bone with God yet. And I think it's funny, you're like, you don't want to talk to God about things. God knows what you're thinking.
Yeah. He knows every thought.
He knows what you're thinking. Some of us have a hard heart towards God because of things that have gone through our life. And maybe you are seeking God, but you don't feel Him in the moment because you have a hard heart towards God. And it's saying, God, help me. Lord, help me. Soften my heart. Help me see you like I should see you. It says, fix our eyes on Jesus, author and finisher of our faith. Help me see you for who you really are. Because I think we look at God and we don't look at Him for who He really is. Because if we did look at Him for who He really is, someone who loves us, someone who's with us, someone who can comfort us, someone who can encourage us, someone who saved us, our hearts would be less hard. Maybe you're in a rut because you have a hard heart with God. God, why did you protect me? God, why did you stop this from happening? Why do my finances look like this? Why am I still single? Why do I have these family issues? In the back of your heart, you've kept it there. You're angry at God. And you don't feel God because your heart is hard towards Him because that one area of your life you haven't talked with God about. You haven't told Him how you feel.
It's true.
And maybe that's why you're in a spiritual rut. But you got to be, I'll say this all over and over again. To be right with God, be real with God. Be real with Him. Be real. Have you ever had those, been in a conversation, been an elephant in the room with that person, a family member or a friend, they're trying to talk to you and have a conversation, and you know what they did? And like, are you not going to address this? You not know that I know what you did? And you don't bring it up to them, and you can't have a real relationship with them, because your heart is hard because something that they did, or maybe something they allowed to happen. Is that there with you? You have to ask ourselves, when I look at my life, is there an area in my life where I have a hard heart towards God? Because He didn't do it. Because He's taking too long. I've been there. Sing the song, you're the God of the breakthrough. Lord, when's the breakthrough coming? You're the God of the breakthrough. Been there. You have to ask yourself, that's where I'm at. And lastly, maybe because sometimes you're doing what you need to do. You're seeking God, you're disciplined, you're going deeper, you're giving the Lord your sin. But maybe sometimes we live, like I said, we live in spiritual warfare. You can just be attacked spiritually. You're doing what you need to do. Just being attacked spiritually. Being attacked spiritually because there's a calling in your life.
Yeah.
God's allowing spiritual to happen because He's trying to mature you and grow you in your faith. He may be doing that. We have to ask yourself, is that? It says, consider Him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. Jesus went through opposition. He went through attacks. But consider Jesus.
Yeah.
And look to Jesus. And know that He can get you through. It could just be you don't feel God because you're being spiritually attacked.
Yeah.
But will you fight? And you fight by standing in faith with God. That could be the thing. You're doing what you need to do.
Right.
But there's an attack on your life. Because there's a calling on your life. Because you're going to be the first one in your family to break that generational cycle. You're going to the next level in your calling. You're going to the next level in your faith and your discipline. And life happens. What's the easiest way to kill something? When it's small.
Yeah.
Jesus was under spiritual attack since birth. King Herod put out a decree. Kill all the babies born during this time. All of them. Constantly being attacked. Jesus was living for God, and He always had to sneak out in the distance. Sneak away, because people were trying to kill Him all the time. Because of His calling in your life. You guys have a calling in your life, you're going to go through spiritual attack. That's part of the faith. But seek God through the attack. And so what happens when you're in a spiritual rut? A few things before we get done I want to share. Have fellowship with family. It said, let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. See, when I used to run track, before I would run a race, what I would do is I had a team. Let us run with perseverance. Race marked out for us. You're not running alone. Let us run. Are you running alone? That's some of us go, we're running alone. Let us run. So when I ran a race, I had someone that was my trainer. He trained me, a speed coach. There's another coach for form coach. You have different forms. Then you have different type of coaches. You have people running with you. You have teammates. I had a strength coach. Someone helped me get stronger in the weight room, to run the race, to run the thing, to do the thing I needed to do. And some of us are trying to run a race alone. Even the sports, Usain Bolt, someone where you run a race by yourself. Or if you're boxing by yourself, then you're really not by yourself. You have people who are with you. People who will train you, who can encourage you, they can tell you to keep going. People think, oh, you're out there all alone, a boxer. No, you're not boxing. You got someone in your corner. And can I tell you, God's in your corner. You should have family members and friends that are in your corner when you run your race. Do you have that? Because the reason why you need those family and friends in your corner, because the moments where you don't want to pray, you can say, my faith, you can know your friends have faith to pray for you. They can stand with you. When you can't hold your hands in worship, they can hold your hands up for you. When you don't want to read the word, you have a friend that says, come on, I'm coming over to your house and we're going to do this together. Because it's so much easier to do things together than do by yourself. So when you're spiritual rut, when your faith takes a hit, when you're a funk with your faith, get with your friends, get with family, get with people that can uplift you, they can push you. When you don't want to take another step, they can be like, come on. Sometimes in life, we actually need someone to actually hold your hand. I don't care how mature you are, how much you love God. You will always be at a point in your life where you'll need someone that holds your hand and walk with you.
Right.
And that's why I say faithful but fragile. You're faithful to God. You love God. You're seeking God. But right now you may be fragile because what life is throwing at you, what life is bringing you. Faithful but fragile. And some of you guys are thinking just because you're fragile, you're not faithful to God. Just because you may not feel like praying does not mean you're not faithful. It means that God does not love you. Faithful but fragile. We've all been there. Some of you guys may be there now. And it's okay to be fragile. But it's not okay to not be faithful. You can be fragile and faithful all at the same time. When Jesus was on the cross crying out to God, he was fragile. But can I tell you, he was still faithful. When he took our place, our sin and shame, yes, he was fragile. He didn't use his strength. He didn't use his power. He was fragile but faithful to the end. Until the new beginning, when he rose again. And some of you guys are in life right now where you're being faithful. It's okay to be fragile too. It's okay to say you're not okay. It's okay to say it's hard today. It was hard to pray today. Yeah, I'm just here today. It's okay to say that. Just because you're fragile doesn't mean you're not faithful. Just because you have a bad day does not mean you don't trust in God. You can have those bad days. You can be fragile and faithful. So have friends that can pray for you, encourage you, help you. And then focus on the power that can help you be more faithful. Fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. Focusing and fixing our eyes on Jesus. Don't take your eyes off of Jesus even when your faith takes a hit. Keep your eyes on Jesus. Everything will tell you to look away. You have to keep your eyes on Jesus even when you're spiritual wreck. Don't you take your eyes off him. You may not feel God, but don't you take your eyes off of him. Don't you stop reading your word. Don't you stop praying. Don't you stop showing up. Even if you don't feel him. Faith is not a feeling. Being faithful is not a feeling. It's not. You got to keep moving forward. And I wish, because we love God, everything could feel good. It's not. That's what heaven's for. That's why we're running this race. But we got things to do before we get to everything feeling good. You'll get there. You'll get there. But until then, you got to run your race. You got to continue to fix your eyes on Jesus. And why do we fix our eyes on him? Because he's felt everything we felt. Angry, tired, being fragile, being hurt, pain. He's felt it all. And that's why we fix our eyes on Jesus, because he's the answer. Not only he's the author, he's the answer. When we're fragile, he's the only answer. That drug's not the answer. The alcohol's not the answer. That weed's not the answer. The affirmation, that encouragement from the other person, that's not the answer. Sex is not the answer. With someone who's not your spouse, it's not the answer. Posting that picture for views and likes is not the answer. To feel better, it's not the answer. Fixing your eyes on Jesus is. That money, getting more money is not the answer. That promotion at job, not the answer. That recognition at your job is not the answer. Jesus is. That's why we fixed our eyes on Jesus. And lastly, you may just need to reset your routine when you're spiritual funk. That's what helps me more than anything. I'm going to switch up my routine. I'm going to switch up the order I see God. Maybe I'll worship first, then pray. Maybe I'll pray first, then worship, then read my word. Maybe I'll do this in the morning, start doing this at night. We'll switch up our routine. Because that's what happens. What happens when you're working out? When you start working out, you do the same weights, you do the same exercises, guess what? In the same weight, you plateau, you go flat. And sometimes our faith is flat. Our faith is stagnant. We're in spiritual rut. Because what do you do when you work out? You switch up your routine. Then your muscles start to break down. You trick your body because your body's like, I'm used to this. So you're not building, you're not getting strong because you're used to it. Maybe you got to switch up your routine so your faith can react differently. Switch up your routine. See God differently. Listen to a sermon throughout the week. Switch up your routine. Pray at a different time. Pray in the Spirit more. Worship more. Switch up your routine. I'm not going to go on lunch break today. Fully, I'm going to go on my lunch break, and half my break, I'm just going to spend time with the Lord. I'm going to switch up my routine. And switch it up and see what happens with your faith. Because think about it, when you do the same thing over and over every day, don't you get bored?
Sure.
Right?
Switch it up.
If you do the same thing all the time, like, I'm tired of this. And it's time to switch up our routine. You get bored, so you can also do it with your faith. Because I think sometimes, a lot of times in life, we make our faith too spiritual sometimes, and we can just make things really practical. It's a relationship. Just like when if you're dating someone in a relationship with a friendship, like, dang, we do the same thing over and over again. Can we do something else? I love you. I like spending time with you, but can we do something else? Can we go to a different restaurant? And it's the same thing with our faith. Switch it up with the Lord. God loves you. He's with you.
Amen.
And I know some of you guys are in spiritual funk, and God's going to get you through it. I know your faith is flat right now, but God's going to get you through it. Fix your eyes on Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. God, thank you for being so good. Thank you.